Hi everyone, coming here with another piano practice tip for your child. So your piano lesson is half an hour every week, let's say, right? And your child spends a few hours at home practicing and they get input once a week. Maybe you're lucky and you exchange a few WhatsApp messages with your teacher in between, but for most people, you get input once a week for half an hour. It's kind of hard, right? It's completely different to maths at school or English at school where you see the teacher every day or two and you get constant input and more time, not just half an hour. The whole structure of piano lessons and piano practice is very different to every other subject, which is why we need to treat it a little bit differently. Park that thought. Another thing that's happening with education at the moment, not just in music, but across every single subject and domain area, is this concept of a flipped classroom. A flipped classroom. That means the time that a student spends with the teacher in the classroom is more for personalization, troubleshooting, support. Really the work, the learning is done outside of the classroom, hence you're flipping it. In pre-reading, in homework assignments, in coursework. That time in the class is really to make the best use of your time out of class, right? It's to give you direction, give you course corrections. Why am I telling you about this? The point is that I believe that piano lessons should be like this as well. And a lot are, don't get me wrong, but just so you as a parent are aware, if you can think of your piano lesson as a flipped classroom approach, right? Get from that half an hour everything you will need for the next week of practice. The best piano lessons don't teach you stuff necessarily, they coach you in how to practice outside of the lesson, right? So it's almost using that half an hour to make the best use of the, let's say, 3 hours that your child spends at the piano in the week. How can you make best use of that time? And it's almost a question you can directly ask your piano teacher, and I'm sure they wouldn't mind, right? How do I best practice at home? How do I best make use of the 2-3 hours that we allocate to practice during the week? In this half an hour, let's not just run through pieces and scales and stuff, but can you help me reinforce healthy practice habits at home? Now, of course, teachers will do a large portion of this already, right? But just kind of 3 or 4 things that come to my mind that maybe it's helpful for your parents to have in your head that you can ask about specifically, are one, the environment. So what is the healthiest environment to practice at home? Is it a nice clean environment, no clutter, nice potted plant, no books, no clutter on the floor, a nice quiet room? Does it enable you to have a healthy, calm and focused practice environment? One little tip is when your child gets back from their lesson, place immediately the music on the stand. It's already an aide-memoire, it's a visual prompt that, okay, I'm gonna need to practice. That's the first thing, right? What's the environment like? The second thing is, and I wanna show you this piece as an example, Claire de Lune by Debussy. Really hard, well, at least hard for me. This is probably grade 8, maybe beyond even. So therefore it's hard for me. I'm sure for many teachers it would be a cinch. But it's one that goes like this. So let me just play the beginning for you, and then I'll explain what I mean in terms of a practice tip. On. I probably made a couple of mistakes in there, actually, but that beginning part is not so hard, right? Overall, and actually, I'm really guilty of playing it over and over, right? You tend to play the beginning of a piece, you tend to play a bit you can play, and it sounds good and it's pleasing to the ear, so you play it more and more. I'm sure your child does the same. The next bit though gets really hard, and really what I ought to be doing is starting my practice from that point, not sort of getting to in 10 minutes time, but starting my practice from the hard point. And to help, I listen to it, right? It happens to be programmed into this piano, but I can equally find the music on YouTube or something. And this is what I recommend you do, right? Have a listen, have your child have a listen to the song that they're trying to play, particularly the hard bits. So let's have a quick listen. This carries on from where I just left off. This bit's okay, it's about to get really hard though. Alright, here we go. This is the really hard bit. Ready? I'll just stop that for a minute. There's a lot going on there. I'll show you the music real quick. That bit that I said was hard was kind of this bit. I mean, there's sort of 7-8 notes happening at the same time. Just to embarrass myself a little bit, I'll attempt to play it, and you'll see that I haven't got this yet, right? I don't know what I'm doing, frankly. Oh my God, that's embarrassing. I'm not going to play anymore. It's hard. It's hard. So what do you do when there's a hard bit in the song? And for your child, of course, it would be a different song and a different part they struggle with. But what I would do is, okay, I had to listen, and I tried to first of all follow along while I was listening, and then I would try to sort of put my hands where I think they are, so sort of follow along silently with the hands. But in my case, because there are so many notes, what I'd probably do is pick the very top line, just one note at a time, which is really the tune, so I can get a sense of what the most important note is. So it would be, think like this. Okay, so that's sounding the same, obviously far more one-dimensional because I'm only playing one note without the chords there, but that gives me a sense of how it's meant to go. And then there's the other standard tips, right, which I'm sure you've heard many times before. Don't try and do two hands at the same time. If you're struggling, just do one hand, just build it up. So in my case, maybe it's, so I did these notes, didn't I? Maybe add a few more now, just the right hand. Okay, I'm still struggling, so I've got to slow it down. I've got to slow it way down, half pace, maybe even less. Alright, I think I got that. Can I do that 3 times in a row? No. There's one particular chord where every chord has 3 notes. There's one chord has 4 notes, and that's clearly where I'm struggling. So let me really hone on that one chord and play that right. That's the chord. So let me play the one before it, and then flick very quickly to that one I'm struggling with. Can I do that quickly? Can I get that transition right? Nearly. I need to keep practicing on that. But that's the way, right? Hopefully you get a sense of it. Really honing in on the passage that's hard, and then the bar that's hard, and then like that one note, that one chord that's really hard, and really focusing on it and almost starting the practice from that point. Okay, so we covered environment, we covered listening to it, so you get a sense of how it's meant to go. We covered starting with the trouble spots, right? Really honing in and starting with those trouble spots. And I'll keep putting more videos and more messages on the Facebook page for these kinds of practice tips. But just circling back to what I was saying at the beginning, right? think of your piano lesson as a guide for how you spend time practicing in the week. And because it's your young child going to the piano lesson, oftentimes without you, make sure you get from your teacher, right, about how to practice in the week. And if you're not sure, I'm sure they're open, to the odd email, the odd WhatsApp. Maybe you can even sort of look carefully at the lesson notes, right, that are given, making sure that they provide tips on really how to practice. I'm sure this stuff is done. I've heard some really good teachers who are actually quite generous with their time, dropping WhatsApp messages and stuff in the middle. You might send them a recording midweek and say, hey, where are we going wrong with this? And they'll message back, which is actually really, really helpful, right? So anyway, I hope that helps, and keep watching this channel for more practice tips. Thanks.